I see the little live bit go up.
Yeah. All right. Matt, do you want to play some intro music?
Yes.
This is
So
this is a
organized.
finely. I know this is such a finely tuned operation.
It's so slick.
This is we have literally pulled the curtains back from the podcast.
You'd call it improv. Wannabe data rockstar improv.
That's right. When it doesn't shut down on you. Right. Trying to juggle several screens at once as well. Right, okay. You ready?
Let's do it.
Are we supposed to be able to hear that?
Oh,
I have no idea.
I'm sure through the magic of editing we will.
Yeah.
That's how it always happens. Joe, this is how it works.
Okay.
Things don't go quite so smoothly, and then through the magic of editing, it's like...
The editing takes
Great.
twice as long as actually doing the recording.
Oh, maybe. All right.
Okay.
Okay, so we're back, and I know I'm like a broken record because I'm so excited, and I know I said that last week too. I'm so excited, or the week before even. But I am really excited for two reasons. One is because we have Joe Mako on, so I'm very excited about that.
Yay!
And because Joe is like, I want to take this podcast live. I'm all about that. So, and actually Matt and I had talked about that before. So I'm really excited that we're able to do two things. It's like I get to be efficient with my goals. Live podcast, hearing from Joe Mako. It's the best of both worlds. Joe,
It's
welcome.
multitasking.
Thank you for having me here. This is great to talk to you guys. I love listening to your podcasts.
Well, thank you
The
very much.
you guys have the fun. It's so wonderful. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, and of course, I just went into I lost my view. Sorry.
See, these are the technical things that you don't usually get to see behind the scenes. So everybody's just used to this immensely slick podcast.
I know.
Now you
I
get
don't
to see
know.
behind the curtain of how it actually works.
Yeah. Yep. I'll be back in a second.
Okay, so, well, whilst we're waiting for the co-host to kind of come back, so what we're going to do today is we'll do our usual review of one of the vids of the week, and then we're going to turn the podcast over to Joe, who's going to talk about flowing with data. And he did a absolutely fantastic talk at the Tableau conference, which sadly I wasn't able to get into because I turned up at sort of the normal time, and the queue was around the door, and they sort of shut the door. So I actually managed to get lunch that day. So thank you, Joe, for letting me get lunch. So I never managed it any other day. So I thought I couldn't get into your talk. So I thought, I know, I'll make the best of it. I'll go and grab some lunch. So thank you very much for that. But I have since watched the video, and I would encourage anybody to do it because it's a great, it's a really good explanation on a subject that will just help anybody. So Emily, are you back now?
I am back. Sorry, I went to see. This is why I shouldn't be involved in techie things, which is kind of funny, because I went to answer a question and say hi to Michael Christiani and Matt Lutton, and I lost it somewhere. So I see you guys. Hi, howdy. Yeah, I know. I was with Matt and wanted to get into your session, Joe, and that's when we actually had a formal lunch that day. So, but the one thing I will have to say is that I'm really glad that we have the session recordings available to us, because I tried to start watching it, and then as we were talking before, this week had just been so crazy that I hadn't been able to dedicate attention to it, and that's what I feel like I need to do. So, so this is actually going to be a learning experience for me, which is really one of the objectives that we had when we set out to do the podcast. So I'm very excited about that. I wish I could download it to my iPad or laptop so that I could watch it anywhere and have it as a reference without logging in, but, you know, those are wishes and dreams.
Yeah, there were a lot of fantastic presentations that that some of us missed out on, like Jonathan Drumney's presentation on data blending. That's a phenomenal one as well.
Oh, you know what? So I missed that one too, and just by like a handful of people, I think. But apparently that one had filled up before the keynote was even finished, which is, that's a tough pill for me to swallow. Whether that pill's green or blue, I don't know.
Hopefully next year they give him a bigger room.
I know. I think I wrote that all Zen Masters should have ballrooms in my recommendation.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
So, all right. So, why don't we chat about Viz of the Day?
Okay.
And, well, the one that we identified to chat about today was the NFL drive analysis. But before we get in there, but while Matt's bringing it up, I want to give a shout out to Ryan Culliver for his Kentucky basketball viz. So I want to do this for two reasons. One is because I think it's a striking visualization. We'll include a link to it in the description when this is recorded later. But one of the reasons why I like it is it's striking, and it's really something that he enjoys. He's a Kentucky fan, or maybe he doesn't like Kentucky, and that's why. Anyway, but he likes basketball, and so he really, developed the visualization. And one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to give a shout out to him was because he was really dipping his toe in the Tableau public pool. So, and he got Viz of the Day. So I think that's awesome. I wish my visualizations were that good, that I could just go out there and do a mic drop in terms of visualization to get Viz of the Day for my first one out the gate. So yay for Ryan. So I wanted to do a shout out for that. So now, Matt, let's see. Let me pull this up here. And so now let's talk about the NFL drive analysis by Dave. And his blog is Improvisation. And so I actually went to to Dave's blog post about this. And so he is a Giants fan. And I can tell that because the color palette is red and blue. So I'll open it up for either Matt or Joe. What are your thoughts on this visualization?
So I don't understand it at all, which I think is because I've only followed NFL for about a year or so, and I haven't seen one of these charts before, and to me there's an awful lot of data there, but there's no context, so I can't understand what the numbers are. So I don't know if a high number is good or a low number is good, or any of the context in there. Now, I haven't got a problem with that, because clearly this viz has been made for somebody, is made by a fan for fans. So I haven't got a problem with the fact that I don't understand, because it's clearly not made for me. So it's like we've talked several times about, when you're designing a viz, you've got to know who your audience is, what level of knowledge have they got about the subject you're presenting on. So he's made a really good viz for people that understand the NFL and what the drive chart is and what all these stats mean. But there's no, he hasn't used any kind of, on some of the previous viz we looked at, where people have explained, like the Scottish election one was a particularly good one, that explained the concept and what a lot of the numbers meant, whereas this one hasn't. This is just presenting the data, presenting it well. Now I don't know whether the other thing I don't know is it a good visualization from that point of view, because the information I'm getting from it doesn't mean anything to me. So maybe if somebody has got knowledge of what the NFL is and how it all works, then it might be a good viz for that reason. But for me personally, from my lack of knowledge about it, I don't understand. I'm not given enough information to put these numbers into context.
I mean, I get the basic premise of it. I mean, I am a football fan, and Dave will be so disappointed to hear that I'm a Redskins fan. So we are rivals in the NFC East. So, I mean, I kind of get what's going on there. What I wasn't quite understanding as well was the score that right next to like the football field, which, by the way, I thought was awesome that he was able to recreate a football field, and then the drives. I thought that was pretty cool. And so, and like the rest, like the bar charts and everything. I mean, I get that. So, and then what he has is, I think, the global filter on this, so that you could always select by quarter to see what was happening there. And so in Dave's blog post, he's like, oh, you know, in the second quarter I felt better as a Giants fan because that's when they did relatively well. That's, but you know, I think the drive chart is, I don't know, I see its purpose. The score column, that confused me a little bit, but I think I'd probably have to spend more time with the visualization and really get in and play and explore with it. So, and he has the legends below, so that's good. Like, you can see this R, just the flag on the play. Really, but you know, actually, what I really liked, again, this is more from the blog post than the actual visualization, was that, you know, he's watching football and he's like, you know what? I'm invested in this because he's been doing some fantasy football. So I'm going to do something about it, and it really inspired him to do something in Tableau. So I think that's the cool part, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, you know, clearly making a viz about, I think one of the things, if you're making a viz for fun, you've got to do about something that you're interested in, or some interesting data, or something you've got like a lot of enthusiasm about. Because these things take a long time to put together. And you don't want to be working on something in your spare time on something that you're not really interested in. So it's clearly made by a sports fan for sports fans, which is what I as I say,
You're not.
I don't particularly understand. No, I don't understand it, but I can appreciate it.
Yeah, and that's good. And I think I think football fans would really like this because then they can get in and see what's going on, and you know, sports is very stats driven, so I think it's an engaging viz for sports fans.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see.
Can I make a couple comments on it as well?
Absolutely. I was getting ready to tee it up for you, Joe.
So for me, I think this is a really wonderful work. I can see the attention to detail that he's put into this. Overall, I think this is a phenomenally technical analysis. He visualizes a lot of data in a very dense format. This is for somebody who is really interested in precision and who already knows what all these internal terminologies are for. So whenever we look at a visualization, it's important to be aware of who's the audience, what's the intent, and to see if it aligns with that when trying to parse the visualization, or to say, is this something that's useful or is it effective? And I think this is an incredibly effective visualization at having a data-dense, rich display that lets somebody see the whole game at once, and also the details of it as well. It's got some filter actions built into it. The visuals, as far as these gray lines, the details, as far as how he's arranged it, I think he's done a really nice job. You know, a couple of complaints that I would have maybe is that these bars are all different sizes over here, and so that's kind of weird. I'm not sure if that height of the bar means anything, but that may be something that can be fixed in another version of it. But other than that, I think it's really well done overall.
Yeah, I'd echo what you say, Joe. That it's impressive that you can see you can visualize the entire game in one complete kind of view. So even with there's all the complexity and all the detail, so you can drill down and find out about individual players and individual plays and that kind of thing. But having the entire thing kind of in display, you can see that kind of one team got ahead and the other one kind of came back, and you can see the ebb and flow of the game kind of visualized over there, and then you can then drill down into each individual part. There's a lot of information in there, and he's done well to kind of, I think, display it in a way that allows you to kind of see it all, but also get a lot of the detail in.
And also, when I look at this, knowing Tableau and knowing what it takes to make these things, I can see the amount of effort and care and attention to detail that he put into drawing each of these reference lines, arranging the dashboard the way that it is. So, complete bravo to this gentleman.
Yeah, and you know what? Actually, so Matt, when you filtered to a particular quarter, I totally then got what the score column was telling me. It was like the length of the drive, or the length of the drive to the score. So that actually helped. So I think, and that's why I think it's important. Sometimes you can take a look at a visualization, and especially, this really applies to interactive visualizations. You can take a look on the surface and go, whoa. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on this visualization. But then when you play around with it and then like just filter, I think it helps increase your understanding of what's going on. So because there's not as much information displayed. So once I was able to actually like focus in on that score and see that, just for one quarter, it helped me understand what was going on with that. So I get it now, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Do y'all have any other comments you want to make about this visualization or any other business that you've seen this week that you want to give a shout out to?
No.
Oh, okay. I mean, I just thought I did a shout out for Ryan's biz on the Kentucky basketball one.
Yeah, Ryan's one was a very good. I agree with everything you said about that. Actually, that was a really good one. I like that.
Yeah, so good. I'm super excited for all of the folks who are starting their data blogs or starting to do some Tableau public work. So I'm really excited.
So just before we move away from the viz, what it would be good is that, and all of these vizzes get posted on the Viz of the Day Facebook page, and it'd be really good if everybody could start commenting on and providing their feedback on the vizzes, because we're doing it on here, and it'd be great to get a bit more of a discussion going on there about what people thought was good, what people thought was bad, so to give the feedback on there. So a good place to do it is is actually on the Facebook page itself.
Yeah.
And then you can start having this conversation. So you can then start explain. The author can then explain some of their design choices as well.
Matt, I'd agree with that. I was really bad with that this week, but I've been trying to do that in prior weeks. So I'll catch myself up and put some of the comments I had on Dave's biz and Ryan's biz, as well as the others, over the weekend. But yeah, I totally want to engage with folks, and I think that that's a really nice place to do it. So, reply to my comments. Because they're just kind of, I don't know, I look at it as they're my observations. And we talked last week about how the positions can change because, like my whole thing with red-green palette.
Yeah.
So I would totally encourage folks to get on the Facebook page and comment for the visualizations because, and not necessarily to critique, I mean, that can be part of it, but I think just that conversation helps people have a better understanding and increases awareness. And so something, some people may not really care about the whole red-green thing, but maybe through some of that discussion about why I think it, why I wouldn't do that or what I would do instead would help them build a better biz. And likewise, some technical comment about a visualization will help. So it's not meant to be a blog post, but I think just a place for conversation. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. But interact. I love it. Okay, so Joe, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, let's do this.
So this is kind of the extreme shortened version of what I gave at my presentation at the Tableau Customer Conference, and I've given this presentation at other times as well. Did my screen just go black? There we go. I don't know what's going on here. There we go. All right. So how do I start this? Let me see if I can set the setting for this and where this comes from. Is 6 years ago I first saw Tableau. And it was an incredible, memorable moment for me. That first time that I saw somebody drag and drop a pill, and suddenly there's a visualization that appears. And I didn't know what was going on, but I was really impressed, and I thought, this is something that I want to do. This is something that I want to better understand. And over the course of a couple of years, working with other users on the forum, conversations, we were able to come up with these 3 main concepts that I consider to be fundamental to using Tableau. Because I feel without awareness of these, Tableau is frustrating, it does things unexpectedly, and we're not able to get the results we want quickly because we're spending so much time in trial and error. Versus with awareness of these factors and what's going on behind the scenes, then we can have a better experience with Tableau, and it becomes a more enjoyable piece of software instead of something that's unapproachable. Okay, and so just to briefly run through these, the first one is the 4 pill types, and then the next one is records to marks, and then levels of calculation. That the 4 pill types is the foundation of VisQL and the different types of variables that we have to work with, and then the records to marks is what is the data transformation that Tableau is doing in the background, and then level of calculation is how do we write our formulas to take advantage of the order of operations that Tableau has. So the first one of the 4 pill types, I consider this to be a series of 2 binary options to give you the 4 kinds of pills. My analogy for this is that there's 4 kinds of people. That comes from 2 binary options of either male or female, long hair or short hair. And so this idea of male or female, that's really substantial, and then the long hair versus short hair, that is more superficial or just appearance. And same kind of thing inside of Tableau. The idea of something being a dimension or a measure is really substantial, and then the idea of continuous versus discrete is just your window dressing or how you want to display it. And so the dimension versus measure impacts your computation. Continuous versus discrete is just the visual. The continuous versus discrete is really easy to tell. You just look at the color of the pill, and that tells you if it is continuous or discrete. Just like you can look at a person and see their hair length and see their long hair or short hair. But just as the long hair and short hair doesn't tell you the person's gender, the continuous versus discrete does not tell you if it is a dimension or a measure. Even though most time dimension pills will be discrete and most measure pills will be continuous, it's not an all the time type of thing. And being aware of these subtle differences lets you have control over how Tableau computes your data and how it displays it. And so, just to give a quick definition of what these terms mean, that outside of Tableau, that based on your context, these terms mean different things. That outside of Tableau, in the field of data warehousing, a dimension means categorical data, and it's a description of the field that you can say, this field is a dimension, or this field is an amount, so therefore this field is a measure. And those types of terminologies and definitions work well when we're discussing data outside of Tableau. But when we change our context to being inside of Tableau and want to understand what is Tableau doing here with these pills, it's important to be aware that these terms take on a new definition, a new meaning, and how does Tableau define what it is to be a dimension, and how does it handle it. That we say we want to use a field as a dimension because dimension simply means the group by, the level of detail, the granularity. And so we use a field as a dimension or as a measure, meaning that it is an aggregation or happening after aggregation. So any field can be a dimension and any field can be a measure. It's just how do we want to use it? And that awareness of that shift in definitions and this 4 pill types of these 2 binary options is the foundation of Tableau in everything that I do. Every single worksheet that I open up, whether it's somebody else's or I'm trying to make something new, this is what I come back to, is the 4 pill types. So incredibly fundamental. The next one is this idea of records to marks and the transformation that Tableau does to your data. That Tableau is dependent on your data structure and data contents. That if you change your data structure or you change your contents, you change your capabilities inside of Tableau. And also what Tableau is doing to generate these marks on the canvas is Tableau sending a query to your data source based on your pill types. When you bring out a dimension, it's sending a group by clause. When you pull out a measure, it's going to send an aggregate to roll up the data to that combination of dimension pills, to that group by clause combination. And then Tableau will take that data in, and if you've got multiple marks cards, or if you're using the measure names, measure values shell, or all sorts of other interesting things, Tableau will reshape the data in its data interpreter before it displays the data. And this data interpreter impacts what Tableau can do on the canvas to display the data. And so an easy way to check this out is take a look at the query that Tableau is sending to your underlying data, see what that looks like, and then once you build your view, do a Control-A to select all, copy the marks, and then paste it into Excel, and see the type of data structure that Tableau created. It could have done an unpivot, it could have duplicated the data, it could have multiple granularities on it at the same time. All sorts of different options can be going on. And so this is kind of that invisible thing of what's going on behind the scenes. And then the last one here is level of calculation, which I would expect most people are familiar with, is because this has got the most documentation with Tableau, is that there's a primary 3 levels of calculation. It's evaluated at the record level, meaning before aggregation. And so these would be simple calculated fields that do not have any type of aggregation in them. And then you've got your aggregation calculations that are being evaluated after aggregation, such as a profit ratio. If you wanted to take the sum of profit and divide that by the sum of sales, that's an aggregation level. It's the division is happening after these 2 values have been summed up to that granularity. And that's a key awareness inside of Tableau, coming from something like Excel, where it's not just referencing a cell, but we're referencing the entire column or an after aggregation. And then finally, table calculations, the most complex part of Tableau, I think, and specifically table calculations are evaluated after densification. And densification is something that we don't really have a lot of documentation on, but I recently created a video with Matt Lutton diving through all sorts of different types of data densification in Tableau, what causes it to turn on, how to turn it off, the exceptions, all the different factors there. So really table calculations are going to be your last thing to have happen. And if you put filters on any one of these levels of calculation, a filter on a record will happen first, and then the data will be aggregated, and then a filter on an aggregation will happen next, and then the data will be returned to Tableau, densified, table calculations will be evaluated, and then filters on table calculations will happen. And so that is my super quick run through of flowing with Tableau. I can open it up to questions or however we want to go next here. Hello?
Hello.
Hey.
That was great, Joe. I mean, I think it's great that people such as yourself explain these concepts in such a easy to understand way, and that I think one of the things that I think frustrates a lot of the newer user is when Tableau doesn't behave like you think it should behave. So the interface and the way that you can build something in Tableau is so easy and straightforward. You just drag things in and things build in front of you, and you keep adding and adding, and then sooner or later you do something and it doesn't do what you think it was supposed to do. and it feels like it's tricking you or it's fighting you. But it's more that you don't understand what's going on behind the scenes because the interface is so easy to use. So I think having an understanding of what is actually going on behind the scenes at a kind of a deeper level really means that you're less likely to kind of be surprised when it doesn't behave quite exactly as you thought it should do.
That's exactly what I'm talking about here, Matt. That when we use Tableau, that the first 15 minutes of Tableau is so easy that that's where Tableau is probably one of the best applications I've used, is that first 5 minutes. You watch a 5-minute video, and you can be productive inside of Tableau. That Tableau has hidden all the complexity, that it's taken advantage, done this automation or these guesses, and generally it's doing good guesses. But what happens when Tableau doesn't guess properly? How do you get Tableau to do precisely what you want to do and not some automatic behavior? It's that first couple of days with Tableau is wonderful, and it's exciting, and it's all new, and then about 2 months in, you've been using the software, and it's like, but now I want to make something that isn't inside the documentation. And the analogy that I have for that is this instrumental versus relational understanding. That your instrumental understanding is you follow a formula, you follow a step-by-step guide, like a Betty Crocker Easy Bake 1, 2, 3. And then a relational understanding is a deeper understanding of how these things work together, the why and the how and the factors that impact them. And that's like being a chef who can take any ingredients on the shelf and combine it to make a wonderful meal. That it's this instrumental versus relational understanding. And instrumental is where we all start when we're beginners. And that's really valuable and useful, that we can get this practice and we can get this kind of familiarity and language with it, which is this fluency. And then once we're at that point that we're like, well, now I want to know it a little bit better because I want to make something where there is no recipe. I want to make something that nobody else has made before, and that's where it requires awareness of these concepts here, of the 4 pill types. Understand what's the granularity is, because this pill type impacts the logic of Tableau for everything, whether it's data blending, whether it's how many marks you get on the canvas, whether it's the automatic mark type that Tableau picks, the filter actions, table calculations, you name it. Every aspect of Tableau is dependent on your pill type, and each one of those 4 pill types, plus your data type as well. And then the reference to marks helps you be able to track what's going on with your data to create the final view so you can keep track of it. And then the level of calculation is that awareness of the order of operations. So because Tableau is doing everything all at once, it's kind of hard to see the order of the sequence of how Tableau is evaluating it, because sometimes we have more complex logic. Versus ETL software like Alteryx, you drop a step and then the next step, and it's got this visible sequence. Whereas inside of Tableau, it's not so visible, the sequence that Tableau is evaluating or computing. So awareness of the calculation enables you to say, yeah, I want to have this happen earlier or have it happen later.
I like the term a data chef. I can be a data chef, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm cutting and slicing and dicing my data and creating delicious dashboards.
And you're combining ingredients in ways nobody else has before.
Exactly, this is good, I like that.
So I would encourage those folks, and I'm sorry that I'm such a technical or technology wannabe, but we can see the questions, and so feel free to write them in, and we'll make sure that Joe answers them.
I don't see the questions.
Oh,
there we go. Q&A?
Sorry. But in the meantime, Joe, I wanted to ask you just a few questions. How did you get into Tableau and data visualization?
Well, for me, I've always been around technology. I grew up around it. I was working in DBase 4, making a checkbook and balance sheet when I was like in 5th grade or something like that. So I've always been around computers and databases and technology. It's just always been a natural thing for me. And so I knew that that's what I wanted to do for work and pay attention to, but I never really knew exactly which part. So one time I was working for an internet service provider and doing L2 VPNs and taking care of routing with BGP and all sorts of technology around networking. And so I was doing tech stuff. And then, but at the same time, we had customers that we needed to maintain their records for, and they would call in for questions, and we'd have to configure the devices and all sorts of stuff. And one day, the boss asked me, how many customers do we have? And I was like, well, depends on which database you want to look at. Because you look at our billing database, we got one set of customers. You look over in our database that we're using for our customer tracking, we got another set of customers. You look on the devices that are configured, and they've got a different story to tell you. So we've got all this different siloed, disparate data that doesn't match up. And he said, well, I want you to figure it out. And so I said, okay. And I was doing master data management and data quality before I knew what those terms were. That it was, I came into this sideways with no really formal training, just kind of grew up around it and searching on the internet and things like Stack Overflow, and found a way to parse the data, use some ETL software like Alteryx to reshape it and combine it and figure out what are the dropouts or the issues. And then in the end, I needed to be able to communicate this. I needed to be able to visualize that these are the records that are wrong and whatnot. And things like Excel didn't do it for me, so I found Tableau via the blog Flowing Data by Nathan Yao, which is a phenomenal resource there. And haven't looked back since. This has been what I've devoted my time to, has been Tableau and helping other people be successful with it, because I have such joy and I want to share it. That Tableau enabled me on that day one, the first initial project with it, to visualize what records were wrong, why they went wrong, who was responsible for them, and then what we need to do to fix them, which one are the low-hanging fruit that are easy to fix, and then to be able to track it as they're calling these customers and saying, hey, we've got your billing wrong, we need to change it, and to see which customers stayed with us and which ones dropped, and to be able to track them through their life. That it was a really wonderful experience that let us communicate what was going on.
Well, there's so many follow-up questions there. How long have you been using Tableau?
Since September 2008.
Okay, wow. Wow.
I think you can find my first question on the forums from that time, where there was a time when I was asking questions on the forum because I didn't know how to do things. And people came on and helped me, and I was inspired by it. And I said, you know what, I'm going to pay it forward. Somebody came in and helped me, I'm going to go on the forum and try to help other people. And it just became a really wonderful community there on the Tableau forum. Long before we had Jive, back when it was just a really simple Drupal, like a PHP board. And it was wonderful to help people out and see them go from frustrated to delight. And that's really what makes Tableau special, is it's a software that lets you be delighted.
That is very true.
Yeah. And so you kind of alluded to this, but I wanted to ask, kind of, what gets you excited, and how does data visualization or data or Tableau fit into that?
Well, for me, what makes Joe Mako is I have a love for helping people. That's really what I want to do at the end of the day, is however I can help somebody else, that gives me the satisfaction in my life. And so Tableau is just that thing that aligns with my technical abilities and with my passion and communicating and helping people, and it's just this perfect alignment, what they call like a maxing out your triangle, where it's a great environment for me to help people, and I love it.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, I was going to say it's helpful, but that's a lot of helping there. But no, I think that's really great, and I think anytime that you can pay it forward or give back, I think that's what makes the community so strong. And helps elevate the visualizations and the people doing them. So one of the things that I wanted to chat with you about just a little bit was you mentioned Alteryx. And I wanted to understand, or I wanted you to tell us a little bit about how you got involved with Alteryx and how it benefits your visualization work or your business intelligence work.
Yeah, so Tableau, from day one of using Tableau, I knew that it was not a complete solution. That Tableau, like I said, it's just all at once. It's a single query deep, really. That it doesn't enable a series of analysis. That the more complex things that I need to do, as far as cleaning and shaping data and doing a series of steps, Tableau doesn't really enable that. And I think it's by design, and it's appreciated that Tableau does not try to be everything. That Tableau focuses just on the cycle of visual analytics. But in order to have that great experience inside of Tableau, Tableau essentially requires clean, prepped data that you're aware of, that's not messy or dirty. So it needs an ETL tool or some type of data processing tool or a data warehouse to get that data ready for Tableau. And so I'm always looking for software that respects the user, that cares about the user experience, because I don't want to use software that's frustrating or is hostile to me. I want software that considers me and says, you know, we know that you're going to want to do this, so we're going to make it easy for you, and we're going to give you visual cues to help you get to where you want to go. And that's what Alteryx does for me. That I've been using Alteryx for, I think, about a year and a half now or so, and it's wonderful that it's got these visual cues of the colors of the icons. It lets me draw these steps together, and then also the cycle of how I can create these modules is I can build it as I'm thinking about it, and then once I've got it finished, I can then more industrialize it or turn it into a macro that then lets me reuse that process and other things. And so this cycle of using the software is really friendly, that I don't have to throw it out, but if I did have to throw it out, because it's so quick to make things, just like it's quick to make things in Tableau, it encourages that iterative process of failing fast. You can go out and experiment and do a whole bunch of disparate things, and then once you figure out what you want to do, then you can refine it. And so I think Alteryx and Tableau really work well together in that philosophy of failing fast, iteration, being able to throw out your best work so you can go on and do even better work.
Yeah, I'd echo that. The process, so I've used Alteryx a small amount, and you said earlier that whereas Tableau does a lot of stuff behind the scenes, with Alteryx where you kind of build the modules in, you kind of chain things together, it's great that you can then, you know, you can do an action and see the result of that and then think, right, what do I want? Now I want it to do this, and kind of add all these little units together so you can have you build this workflow. And then once you build this kind of spider web on your screen, you can then go around and do it, as you say, throw that one away and then do it properly and neater, and condense down those 20 moves into like just a couple of moves and save it. And it's a very nice experience using it. I've really enjoyed using it, and it just seems to fit really nicely with the Tableau kind of way of doing it. It makes it very easy to do some very complex stuff.
Absolutely.
And I think that, you know, that's part of the benefit, whether it's Tableau or Alteryx. I think being able to see what you're doing and immediately see the results of it, I think is really powerful. I know one of the reasons I was playing around with another BI tool with a free trial, and
what?
I wanted to see what else was out there. No, don't lynch me. Think about my kids, Matt. Don't lynch me. But no, I just wanted to get perspective. Actually, it wasn't like I was moving away from Tableau, but I wanted to see what else was there and see how it compared. But I have to say, one of the things that I think is the strong point of Tableau, and what little I've seen of Alteryx, is the ability to be able to drag something and then be able to see your results. And in Alteryx, I think you can click something, it'll give you some kind of indication of whether it's proper or not. But with Tableau, being able to drag something onto the canvas and then being able to see the results of that and say, yeah, that's right, or no, that's what's going on there, I think that's the strong point. And so other tools where you have to build everything out and then click run and then get report or whatever, I think the longer that time is between building it and then actually seeing it, I think there's a detriment. So, my 2 cents.
Yeah. The immediate gratification, the immediate returns is that it really sends that emotional evocativeness of it, where it's almost like playing a game, where you've got this mental model. When you come into it, you see a button that you can press, you press the button, and then takes that logic, that software takes the logic and the button press and produces an output for you and allows you to shift your mental model. And so it's like this loop of mental model, action, then the rules are applied, and then out comes this result. And so it gives you this tight looping of you can learn fast and you can experience a lot of things in a short time, like playing a video game.
All right, and so we've talked about all the things you can do and failing fast with Tableau and Alteryx. Now, what are some of the things, or what is the one thing or multiple things that you struggle with, Joe, in Tableau?
Well, I'd have to say data densification is the hardest topic inside of Tableau for me, that it is incredibly complex. I spent an hour talking about all the different combinations and ways that it can turn on and off and how fragile it is. I would imagine that you talk to any expert in Tableau that's made use of data densification, and they'll tell you it's overly complex. So that's my number one wish for Tableau, that they make that simpler. And it's going to be a hard task. They're going to have to redesign their entire pipeline and change how Tableau works behind the scenes. And I'm going to need to adjust this mental model that I have here of Tableau with the 4 pill types and records to marks and level of calculation, that it's going to change. And I think that's a really positive thing, that Tableau is able to say, yeah, we didn't get it right, and so we're going to make it better. And I really appreciate that attitude that Tableau and the developers have. They're a wonderful group of people.
Okay. Well, your answer actually kind of leads into a question that we usually save for last in terms of our questions that we ask our folks, which is, what are your 3 wishes? So you've talked about one, I think, which is the data densification. What are your other wishes for Tableau or data visualization in general?
Well, I think one thing that Tableau has recently started is better documentation with better videos that align with how Tableau works. Tableau recently published 2 new videos here. Let me see if I can bring up this here real quick. Let's see here if I share my screen again. Where is this? Here we go. Share my screen. Screen 2. So when you come to Tableau's website and you go underneath, what is it, support or learning, yeah. Let's see, yeah, training and tutorials under learning. And from here, inside the on-demand, they've got this new section called Why is Tableau Doing That? And these 2 videos here align completely with the 3 concepts that I was just talking about. Understanding your 4 pill types, and the granularity, aggregation, so the different types of calculation, the level of calculation, that this is really encouraging for me to see Tableau make videos that dive into more of the background to help people better understand what's going on. So this is wish number 1 for Tableau, is more documentation, better documentation that explains what's going on behind the scenes, instead of just the instrumental step 1, 2, 3. That this is a relational understanding of Tableau. So this is really appreciated. Wish number 2, I guess, is to help people understand how to align their visualization with their intent. That there's this idea of having the audience and matching the visualization to the audience. Let me see here. Did I even share my screen? I don't know if it's shared. There we go. So here's what I'm talking about on my screen here is the underneath what would Tableau do, underneath the learning, training and tutorials, on demand, and why is Tableau doing that. And so the other thing is matching your visualization choice with your audience and your intent, I think, is really important. That there's a lot of talk about, oh, well, it's a pie chart and that's horrible because it's a pie chart. Well, there's usefulnesses for that, and that being aware of that it's not black and white, that everything's got this kind of gray area and intent, and there's deeper levels than just this is right and this is wrong. And so things like a line chart, for example, like doing a profile chart. Let me see if I can find this video here real quick, or this blog post. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Here we go, like a pie or a stacked chart. Now, for example, we've got this data here that somebody would show as a pie chart or a stacked chart. Well, what if there's another way to show this data? You know, something like this may not be necessarily classically best practice, but showing it as a line chart where we have these discrete dimensions going across the bottom here that normally we would say, oh, the line needs to be time series or it needs to be a sequence of things. Well, we can have it be discrete dimensions as well, and Tableau will draw a line to connect those. And this lets us see really interesting things. Versus if we were to look at, let's see here if I can do this instead, open this in a new tab, that if we look at this data, there's nothing really interesting that you can see immediately. Maybe you can see the orange is biggest. But when we look at a chart like this, we can see that consumer is different from the other ones, or that East here inside a small business is different than the other ones, or that consumer central is lower than the other ones. So we can compare these together in a more interesting way. And we can take this visual and highlight those differences. We can draw a line to show the average to see which ones are above or below the average. And then we can take that gray line and use that as the 0 and just do a point difference from the average. Or we could turn that into bars. And now it is super easy to see which ones are different. And so this is a completely different visualization from the beginning, but it's with Tableau and being able to say, you know, I want to pay attention to what's my intent, of what's my goal. You know, it's not just which one has the highest sales, but which one's different and how do they compare? Well, this shows you a wonderful comparison versus the average to see these are the region customer segments that are higher, and these are the region customer segments that are lower than the average. And so it's this iterative process that Tableau enables with different chart types that may not be standard, but you can use them to answer your question, to be in alignment with your goals.
I think that's one of the things that is good that Tableau allows you to kind of play with that. You can try all these things out and you can experiment because you get the quick feedback. You don't have to wait and sort of run something, get the result back, run it. You can just kind of do it, and things just happen right in front of you. And what I try and do with the new users when I'm sort of demoing Tableau is rather than them saying, I want a chart that looks like this, they come with a preconceived idea that they want to have this value on this axis, this value on this axis, and it to look a certain way, is to actually ask the questions and then just drag stuff about and see what comes up. And then that way, you know, your default thing might have been a pie chart, but then trying something else, you might have seen something different. And Tableau really allows you to kind of experiment. And that's one of the things I really like about it. That you then can break these rules that say, you know, you should never, you know, the dogmatic way of saying you should never use this particular chart type, or you should only use this chart type for this particular set of data. You can break the rules quickly and say, oh yeah, that works, that doesn't work, or as you say here, you can show that there is a difference, and then that difference might be enough to go off and investigate some other way.
Absolutely. That it's, for somebody who's first learning data visualization, these rules are very helpful to say, use a bar chart here and start the axis at 0 and use the line chart for this, that it gives them this formula that lets them create something. without really needing to spend the time or the years to understand the deepness of it. They can immediately jump to a result. And so having this codified is really valuable. But then once you've been doing it for a couple of years and you want to do something different and experiment, then breaking these rules is where you find a lot of value. That you know the rules well enough to know why these rules are there in the first place, so you can break them intelligently.
So, Joe, this made me think, one of the questions we asked Andy Kriebel was, what are some of his Andy-isms? Like, what does he generally do? Excuse me. What does he generally do for his visualizations? So, I think it would be interesting to hear from you. When you do visualizations, what are your Joe-isms? Like, what do you do? I don't want to say always because that's an absolute, but generally speaking, what do you always do for your business?
Well, I would say that the Joeism is these 3 points here. Every visualization that I look at, whether it's something I'm creating from scratch or I'm helping somebody else with the visualization, these are my 3 things that I'm thinking about every single time. And so that's my main focus. As far as maybe a stylistic thing, I generally go with Tableau's defaults. I'm not going to spend a lot of time changing the fonts or changing the colors or changing the axes. I'm going to let Tableau do what Tableau does, and I'm going to focus on what I'm going to do. That I'm going to let Tableau handle those monotonous, computer things that it's good at, and I'm going to focus on the creative work and trying to figure out what's interesting. That if you were to go out to my profile here, let's see if we can find this here real quick. Profile from Mako. And if we look at this, you'll notice, what are my color palettes? My color palette is the default Tableau colors. Do I have any fonts? No. It's all just the default Tableau fonts. But maybe as you get into some of these older ones, maybe I've got some different colors in there. But it's primarily, I'm going to let Tableau do what Tableau's good at, and I'm going to use the software to pay attention to what I want to pay attention to, which is, how do I communicate the data? How do I find that story to tell, to say, this is what you should be paying attention to. Here's the outlier. Here's the thing that doesn't match. Here's what's interesting. Here's the comparison to make. But that's what I think visualization is for, is to enable a comparison visually that aligns with our human cognition and human perception. So with that in mind, I'm clearly a fan of Stephen Few, where I think it's for business purposes and not so much for emotional purposes. That I've got a task at hand here and I want to achieve that goal. I'm not trying to get somebody interested in this visualization. I want to have something that's going to communicate a lot of data in a very dense way. If you look at these are very dense data visualizations. So I think that's my focus, is comparisons in regards to human cognition and letting the software do what it's good at, so I can pay attention to being creative.
Now, you mentioned Stephen Few. What other resources, whether they're books or blog posts, do you follow or would you recommend to other folks?
Yeah, so in addition to Stephen Few, my favorite book is called Trees, Maps, and Theorems. This is a book by Jean-Luc Demont, a guy from Belgium. Phenomenal book. If you have not seen his videos or seen this book, highly recommend it. Anybody that gives a presentation, writes a paper, or needs to communicate something, this is an incredibly valuable resource. That he's written it more so with the focus of like PhD students, but I really don't care what you're doing. This book is valuable to everybody that needs to communicate a message. Because what he talks about is, how do we enable somebody to receive the message? And it comes down to, first, you need to know your audience of who you're presenting it to, so that you can craft your message for your audience, because you don't have control over them. What you do have control over is your own message that you want to communicate. And so you craft your message, you change what you do have control over, so that it can be received by them. And then also being aware of noise, that removing chart junk, removing the flashy colors, removing the things that distract, or if you're standing up and presenting, remove those mannerisms that are going to be distracting, like jingling something in your pocket or whatnot, or those nervous tics. And then being able to have useful redundancy. If I'm going to say something, have a nice diagram to go with it, to not just read off my slides, but to have a useful redundancy that reinforces the message, that communicates it for somebody that may not be listening but is looking, or vice versa. And just really, these principles are really valuable in any type of communication. So I'd recommend his book. He's also got some videos. Let's see if I can find his other resources here. We got Explore Topics. Maybe here. There we go. Here's his other website. So if we go to Principle B, this gives access to resources, videos, and podcasts. These are really wonderful videos that I was lucky enough to get a chance to see and talk in person here in California. It was wonderful joy. So that would be my other resource. In addition to Stephen Pugh is Jean-Luc Demont, Trees, Maps, and Theorems.
That's awesome, because I wasn't aware of those resources, so now I've got some additional ones I can check out. So, and I'm sure others as well. Others will as well. I think to touch on a point that you made in terms of presentations and engagement, I think it's really difficult, and this is a conversation that I think Matt and I are going to have in a couple of weeks, is how to balance engagement versus when you're presenting. And I think that there are there's a lot of discussion that can be had around that. I mean, certainly you want to be engaging, you don't want to be distracting, and you don't want to, a viz with a lot of junk. Likewise, I don't think you want a presentation that has a lot of words and bullet points on it. And so, but you also don't want something with, cute puppies and flashing lights. So I think striking that balance is really difficult sometimes, but necessary.
That noise
Exactly.
you can hear is Andy Kriebel just changing his latest presentation. 200 puppy dog slides just been deleted. That frantic clicking.
I know.
That's him just deleting it all out now.
Yeah, Andy.
He's crying into his Dunkin' Donuts.
I know, Andy Kriebel, Matt and I have had a bit of a conversation about this, and well, and I could go on for like I could go on much longer about this, but I think Matt threatened to fade me out if I do. But yeah, I think engagement is necessary and it's important, and I think it's just a balance of how you engage. So. All right, let's see. Matt, do you have any other questions for Joe? We don't have any questions that I think have come in so far. So
we sort of do our comments on the viz of the days, and are there any kind of, what are the visualizations? Have you any of the visualizations that have caught your eyes either with Tableau or in the outside world over sort of the last sort of few months or so that have really kind of caught your eye and made you think, wow, that's something really special?
No, I don't have anything off the top of my mind that struck me as being interesting. Let me see if I shared anything on my Google Plus here real quick, because that's where I share all of my interesting things that I find on the internet. Let's see if I got any recent visualizations in here. I would say this was a really interesting visualization. Visualization of kind of the universe, or our corner of the universe. I don't know if you've ever seen this video before, but I found this via probably flowing data as well. So I don't know if you can hear this or how to do this. Is this coming across the audio? No?
Not the audio, no.
Okay. But it's a visualization of where the Milky Way is in our universe. And so each one of these dots here is a galaxy. And then they're trying to figure out how are these galaxies related to each other as far as what's pulling on each other and the gravity to be able to identify it. So this is kind of our place in the universe. And I love this visualization. Really inspiring to me. You can put a link to that video in the description.
Yep, I just wrote a note to myself to do that. Okay, well, you know what, Joe? You've gotten a lot of props on the comments thread. You know, they range from, you know, thanking you for your help and that you have an incredible work ethic, and that there were questions that somebody asked you that you couldn't answer, and now you have all the answers, or you have a lot of answers.
Well,
So,
I don't have all the answers. It's a progress,
No.
and you know, it's a community. It's not just one person. It's all of us coming together that makes this really special. And I think it's because Tableau software was designed with intent to care about the user that it's attracted a wonderful group of people, such as yourself, Emily, and Matt, and so many other great people that makes it really special. It's all about the people. It's not about the software. It's not about the data. For me, it's about the people, and I want to help these people and recognize that they're individuals and that they're trying to get somewhere. And I want to help them get there, and in turn, that makes the world a better place.
Well, I can't think of a better way to end the podcast than that. It is about the people, and Joe, I really want to thank you for coming on today and taking time for sharing your passion and your expertise with us. For everybody who is participating now or who will view this later, we'll put the links to the videos and to the references. I know that some folks have put the links in the comments thread, but we'll make sure we'll include that as well so that they're all in one place. So Joe, thank you so much. It's been fantastic, and I think it's great to hear from you and others like you. I think it also inspires the other community members as well to do better, to give back. And you're right, the community is, I think, the best. Well, I think it's the best part. So thank you for your sharing with us today.
My pleasure, and thank you two for putting this together, for doing this podcast, for putting yourself out there. This is really great work you guys are doing. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, we rock.
All right. So until next time, I guess we'll close it out and say good day and good viz.
Good day and good viz.
Good day and good viz.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.